After episode 5 of Ahsoka, nearly all the discussion over the past week has centered around the return of Anakin Skywalker. Hayden Christensen and his appearance, how did he do? Did you see those lightsaber duels? What does this mean? Was that really Anakin? Was it really the world between worlds? All these questions. And for a week, it distracted a lot of people from what really up to this point, over halfway through the first season of Ahsoka, has been a rather mediocre plot, writing, character development, dialogue, and a lot of problems that people are having with the series as a whole. But the return of Anakin distracted a lot of people from that. Now we're on to episode 6, and we have a new toy to jangle in front of people, as Dave Filoni likes to put it, because Dave Filoni has referred to Grand Admiral Thrawn as basically a toy that you throw in front of stupid fans. If you don't believe me, believe Dave Filoni.
We were talking about Mara Jade earlier on, and who knows?
There's always...
That guy said yes.
Yeah, see, I knew this would happen, which is I give Thrawn, but it's like, as soon as you give them, it must be like if you have a child, you give them a toy, and they're like, yay, what else have you got? And it's like, no, play with Thrawn for a little bit.
It lasted for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But leading up to this episode, a lot of people expected we'd finally get to see Thrawn, Ahsoka headed to a new galaxy with the bad guys already on their way, and of course, they have Sabine. And unfortunately, in this episode, you get a lot of Sabine Wren, who I was not a big fan of Sabine in Rebels, never found her particularly compelling, kind of found her a little annoying. It's even more so in the live action. She gets a lot of screen time in this. And at the very end, you do get a glimpse of something that Rebels fans have been waiting for so long. But unfortunately, I do not think this episode's going to be received all that well. It may all go down to how you feel Lars Mikkelsen portrays Grand Admiral Thrawn. But let's get into this entire thing. The start of the episode, it starts off in hyperspace with the Purgles. Ahsoka and Hu Yang are in the mouth of a Purgle, if you remember from the end of episode 5, and they're traveling through hyperspace. Hyperspace looks a little strange. Maybe it's because it's the Purgles. Maybe it's because it's going through a different galaxy. Who knows? They're going between galaxies right now. But they are in the mouth of the Purgle, and they're having a discussion, remembering about the stories they used to tell about the Purgles, about going to different galaxies, things like this. Ahsoka, one of my main criticisms, I guess, would be, despite the fact that she's now Ahsoka the White, that we saw an Ahsoka with a smile on her face, looked like she's going to have a little bit different attitude, she's right back to lame-ass fucking sour Ahsoka. And she's really upset thinking about Sabine, and what she didn't tell Hera was that Sabine let them go, willingly went with them and gave them the map to find Thrawn, also she could see Ezra, and really risked the entire galaxy. Kind of a stupid decision, and one that, you know, could have lasting ramifications, and thousands of people could die, all because Sabine didn't want to give up the hope of seeing Ahsoka. And near the end of this, as they're just kind of talking about that, and she's telling Hu Yang that's actually what she saw, she's like, tell me a story, Hu Yang. Tell me one of these stories you used to tell while we're sitting here waiting to get to Thrawn. And he gives this little line that might make some people cringe, might make some people smile, but it's right here.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Star Wars references Star Wars now. That's what it is. The peak Star Wars is just when it's trying to remind you about other Star Wars. That's what some people think. But that is the title of this, Far, Far Away. You kind of get it. They're going to a different galaxy, far away. Okay, you get the meme. But that's the way they decided to do the intro. Now, Sabine is in handcuffs. She is a prisoner. Balon goes and talks to her a little bit and essentially says he thinks that he's going to keep good on his promise to let her see Ezra, but he has an alternative. He has an alternative motive. He thinks that she can be useful in some way. Ray Stevenson, once again, is a badass, is awesome, the most interesting character in this entire thing. He really draws your eyes and he makes you pay attention when he's speaking. But throughout this episode, he is very mysterious in terms of there's a greater purpose somewhere out there. Something's calling to him once they get to Paridia, the planet that they're about to head to. And he feels like he's supposed to be there for something. They arrive at Paridia, which we get revealed as the ancient homeworld of the Dathomiri Night Sisters, her ancestors. So there you go. The Dathomiri are from another galaxy now, at least according to Disney Star Wars. If that was established before, could have been, but certainly not something that used to happen, but could have happened in some random book or a mention in one of the animated shows. I've seen all of Clone Wars, all of Rebels, but it might have been something that slipped through my mind. She explains that the Dathomiri were the first people to be able to ride the space whales. And interestingly enough, because they used to ride rankers in the old EU, maybe they were able to ride the space whales in this. Who fucking knows? But it's a graveyard of dead space whales in the rings around there. But Balon decides that Sabine should be of use and is going to go to the surface to meet, as it turns out, more Night Sisters. If you remember from the Clone Wars, you had Mother Talzin and all the Night Sisters. They completely fucked up the Dathomiri, in my opinion. They ruined something that was great in the EU and destroyed it for Clone Wars. Again, not necessarily focused for this review, but you meet, I think she called them grandmothers. Is that what I believe that's what she referenced them as. Either way, they're Dathomiri witches. They immediately sense that Sabine is some sort of Jedi and that she's a threat to what they have going on here, but they're the ones that communicated with Morgan, sent her visions to come. This is what she needed to do to get to Paridia and to find Thrawn. It's these 3 witches. That's the first time that that's been established in the series. But they decide they need to lock up Sabine. They put her in isolation because they don't want her talking. They meet on top of this giant structure, which doesn't really, I didn't catch if it was really explained. They did say there were catacombs, and later in the episode, they start bringing things out of there. You still don't quite know what they're getting out of this, but this is the structure you see. And some wolves, some kind of wolves. They're called howlers, but they basically look like wolves because Dave Filoni is a furry, and Dave Filoni's fucking obsessed with wolves, so it's not really a surprise. Baylan and Shin have a discussion about, Balan's like, it's inevitable. The rise of the Jedi, the rise of the Empire, these sides that continue to battle and battle and battle, and Shin's saying, isn't it our time? It's our time to grab the power. And Balan says, no, he wants to do something else, the beginning of something else, still very vague about what his end goals are. We'll see if that gets revealed in the next few episodes. Shin, the actress who plays Shin, I just feel like delivers her dialogue, much like a lot of other people in the Mandoverse, very stale and not very believable. When it's a couple characters, it's one thing. It's a lot of characters in the Mandoverse. But then as Sabine is trying to use the Force and still cannot, the thing starts shaking, and we see the remnants of the Chimera. The Imperial Star Destroyer that took Ezra and Thrawn and the Purgles, they all jumped to hyperspace at the end of Rebels. This is Thrawn's ship, and as it's passing over, you can see that it's in some disorder and disrepair, and it's like parts have been salvaged. There's some gold pieces on there as they're trying to make repairs to it, something like this. They basically bring the thing down right on this pedestal that they're on, so that now they're in the hangar bay. And we get the first introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I want to play this for you guys here. We have all these night troopers, what the caption calls them, stormtroopers that have different armor. No real explanation as to why the armor looks like this. It's because they've been in exile for so long, it was in disrepair. They use these things, or is it for a specific reason they use this material? We don't know. Maybe we'll know at some point in time, but they just look like, oh, they're cool, they're different, they're stormtroopers, but they're unique. Man, it really seems like the sequel trilogy to me, doesn't it? But they're chanting Thrawn. They're chanting for their boss, Thrawn. This is a character named Enoch. I don't know why he has a mask like this. Maybe we'll find out at some point in time. He's been described as a, what is the fucking piece of shit that was in the sequel trilogy? Phasma, Captain Phasma. Been described as a Phasma-like character. Don't know if that's a great way to describe someone, but we start to see Thrawn, our first vision of Thrawn, and he is marching down this line of stormtroopers who are now night troopers who are chanting his name. Look at this. Now, my first look at live action Thrawn, and I have to say, he's looking a little thick. Thrawn's looking a little bit thick for someone who's been in exile. Listen, Lars Mikkelsen did the voice of Thrawn in Rebels. I think he's okay as a voice of Thrawn, but you got to look like Thrawn, and Thrawn was in good shape. Thrawn kept very good care of his body. This guy's got some extra pounds. We're looking at thick Thrawn here, and I think that's a mistake. I think Lars should have got in better shape for this role. I don't think that's very representative of how Thrawn would let his body deteriorate, but That's my opinion. Anyway, we get his first address, and he kind of asks, like, he knows who Morgan is. He doesn't know who Balon and Shin are. He gets explained that they're mercenaries, and he knows that Balon is a Jedi because he remembers General Balon Skull, that he used to be a Jedi. And it gets revealed that they have a prisoner, Sabine Wren. Thrawn knows who Sabine is from Rebels, and it gets explained the deal that Balon gave her. Let's listen to a little bit so you can hear what Thrawn sounds like. Again, the voice was in Rebels, but here it is in live action.
I am ever your servant, Grand Admiral.
This is Enoch, captain of my guard. You shall begin the cargo transfer as per my agreement with the Great Mothers.
I have seen the catacombs. It will take some...
And so they're going down to the catacombs to get a bunch of cargo. Are they taking like dead bodies or something? Are they taking materials? They didn't really explain it in here, but maybe we'll find out at some point in the series. But he gets explained the deal that Balon made for her to find Ezra, and Grand Admiral Thrawn decides, you know what, Sabine may be useful to us yet. Then we have a sequence where Sabine's just disrespectful as fuck to Thrawn because, of course, old adversaries, old enemies, blah, blah, blah. Thrawn decides, I'm going to, stick to Balon's deal with you. You can go see Ezra. I'm going to give you transportation. I'll let you have all your fucking weapons, and I'll give you some way of knowing where he last was, where we knew Ezra's last, appearance was, but there's no guarantee that he'll be alive. And by the way, in 3 days, I'm leaving this place, and if you're not here, you're stranded forever, just to let you know. There's a close-up on Lars Mikkelsen. I just don't think it looks great, personally. Obviously, whenever you have something that goes from animation to live action, someone was originally in the books and the expanded universe before Filoni bastardized it and destroyed his character in Rebels, you're always going to wonder, how does it look? Some are better than others. I don't think he embodies Thrawn personally. He doesn't look quite as fat in this side profile, so that's better at least. But certainly at times he looks a little pudgy. She gets given this fucking wolf howler thing as a transportation. She gets warned that there's, people out there that are probably gonna hunt her down if she's out there, that are kind of surviving out there in the wastelands, just as a warning, and gets the advice to die well. So Sabine is now on her way to find Ezra. Thrawn reveals that it's not his plan that Sabine and Ezra really make it back. He's gonna let Shin and Balon be led to them, and he wants them to eliminate them. Of course, that's supposed to be the big plan, the big twist from the genius Thrawn. It's rough when Dave Filoni is writing what is supposed to be an incredibly intellectually superior character, because what we've seen mostly from Filoni throughout all of his stuff is that it really is cartoon levels when it comes to him. That's kind of why people are critical of the plot, the dialogue, the writing when it comes to Ahsoka and the Mandoverse. That's just one of the things you have to factor in. That's why I don't think Thrawn is a good character for Dave Filoni to be dealing with. And maybe it'll be explained at some point in time. It is ridiculous that Thrawn has not killed Ezra at this point, that Thrawn has let Ezra survive on this planet. It doesn't make any sense, but I'll talk a little bit about that when we get towards the end. So they are going to follow Sabine. Sabine gets into an interaction with these people. There's really not too much of note other than she tries with the blasters, takes a couple out, eventually has to switch to her lightsaber. I think she gets hit in the back of the head and nothing happens to her at some point. She obviously doesn't have her helmet because it got left back on the other planet they were on when it got knocked off in their fight. But while that happens, her communication, the things she was going to use to track down Ezra, like where the last location was, gets sliced in half, and her mount ran away. Back to Thrawn, they're starting to load all of this stuff into the cargo bay, and Morgan and Thrawn have a discussion about, hey, the mercenaries, they're following Sabine, and Morgan kind of complains, hey, why aren't you going to send more troops if they're ready to take out Sabine and Ezra to support them? And Thrawn basically says, I don't really care if they die or if they're just stranded here, and I don't care about your mercenaries either, just for the record. So Thrawn doesn't care if anybody makes it back to the ship. Once again, you would think that Thrawn wouldn't like to leave loose ends like that, which is going to come up later in this episode, but again, this is not really the Thrawn that everyone knew from the expanded universe. You have this thing where Sabine is now yelling at her mount that she literally just got introduced to, this wolf horse hybrid thing, and she's like shaming it for running away from her. She talks to it for about the next 10 minutes, has conversations with it. I think all of their interactions are cringe. I think most of what Sabine does in this series is kind of insufferable, and it's a problem that she is now the de facto lead character in it, to be honest with you. But she says, follow your nose, boy, and he happens upon what looks like just to be a stream to get some water, and they discover there's some little creatures that are disguised as rocks. And they're called the Nati. I'm not sure exactly what they are. Here's what they look like. Little fucking weird freaks, but happens to recognize the emblem on Sabine's shoulder pauldron because he has one too. What do you know? This person knows Ezra. Sabine's been looking for like a fucking hour and happens to run into a group of people that are living with Ezra, by the way. The fact that this is how you get led to Ezra is laughably stupid and cartoonish, but that does describe Dave Filoni, I think. She starts following the Nati back to their village as we get a little more of Balon and Shin. This is where Balon is saying, like, I feel something's out here. Something is calling for me. Don't you hear it? He's trying to explain this to Shin. Shin thinks they should just get back to the ship and make sure they get back and don't get stranded here because she doesn't think there's anything here for them. Balon thinks otherwise. Mysterious Balon. You need to start revealing some of these mysteries, though. You do get a little bit of him throughout this episode talking about his life as a Jedi and, you know, how he misses the idea of it, but he doesn't miss the fact that it was all kind of a lie, that it was never a truth. And he talks about that with Shin. But then Sabine is taken back to the village of the Nati, these little weird Ninja Turtle freaks. I don't know exactly what they are. But it just so happens that Ezra is living with them. She found a little community of people that Ezra has been living with, and this is them reuniting. And I'm going to be real. This is supposed to be this incredible moment, this emotional moment, this heavy-hitting moment. Sabine and Ezra finally reunited. The vast majority of people probably don't know what the fuck this is. They probably don't like Sabine. They're not connected to her as a character, and they have no idea who Ezra is or what Ezra's doing here because if you didn't watch Star Wars Rebels, you don't understand this. It comes off as so easy and cheap and shallow. There is like no emotional moment, not the one that it's supposed to be. It really is sad. And she refuses to tell him that, oh, by the way, I led everyone here and Thrawn's going to go back to the galaxy. Everything you sacrificed for, the 10 years of your life that you're out here in exile, that you've escaped, that you've been living like this, I fucking ruined that in an instant because I wanted to see you. Thrawn is going to go back to the galaxy because of me. Doesn't tell him any of that, just kind of wants to enjoy it. But this is them reuniting. I'm sure a lot of Rebels fans out there are going to be, having a great time. Unfortunately, a show that aired on Disney XD might not necessarily resonate with the general public who probably has no idea why they should feel any certain way about these characters reuniting. He also then says, hey, we're going to pack up this camp. We don't stay in one place for very long, kind of negating the idea that Thrawn would have had some prior idea of where they were to help Sabine find them. It's just sheer fucking luck that she ran into these freaks, these Nati freaks that led her to Ezra. Again, the fact that Ezra's still alive, I'll cover it in a second. But back to Thrawn, they basically say that the Great Mothers are sensing that someone else is on their way. There's another person coming with the Purgils. And Thrawn immediately deduces it's Ahsoka Tano, and that it must be Ahsoka Tano. If there's a Jedi, you can't underestimate a Jedi. Give me everything you know about Ahsoka Tano so I can get to know everything about her. He's kind of upset with Morgan and thinks that maybe Balon is in on it. Since Balon's a former Jedi, maybe he let Ahsoka Tano live, and it's all part of the plan. And this line, no, we shall consider Ahsoka Tano alive until we know otherwise. He tells the Great Mothers that he's going to once again need access to their dark magic. And that's how the episode ends. To me, what I think is really fucking ridiculous is that Ezra is still alive. With an entire Star Destroyer full of personnel and all these people at his disposal, he did say that there are people have dwindled in the time, right? The resources have dwindled. Their personnel have dwindled since we've been in exile. But still, with all of that, Thrawn hasn't found Ezra and killed him. That is insane to me. Or at least taken him prisoner or whatever. After everything that happened, everything that he cost him, it's wild that he would leave somebody like that potentially roaming around and wait for Sabine to come to have Balin and Shin track him down and for them to just be stranded. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe they'll explain something later on, but right now it just looks really fucking stupid. So there was so much Sabine in this, and I think Sabine is one of the weakest points of the show. Her reunion with Ezra, which is supposed to be an emotional moment, and maybe was for Rebels fans out there. I watched all the Rebels. I'm not a Rebels fan, though. Maybe that was it for you and really satisfying. I don't think most people are going to see it that way. All the Anakin stuff certainly distracted people for a week when it came to the discussion about this show. That time is up. We're on to the next episode, and unfortunately, some of the problems have resurfaced in this one. What do you guys think about this? Give me your thoughts on how Thrawn looked in live action, how he felt in live action, what you thought about the episode, and the easy, cheap, pathetic way that they reunited Sabine and Ezra. Let me know in the comment section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.